Blog of a dead zone, posted anonymously on a survival forum, discovered by a user named AlexMoss78. I'm not one to spook easily. I've read hundreds of outdoor encounter stories. Most are exaggerated, some are hoaxes. But in this blog, I don't know, something about it rang true. The way it's written, the details, the fear under the words, it felt real. I'm going to paste the entries here. Do what you want with them, but I don't think this guy made it out unchanged. If you ask me, he was haunted by something that wasn't supposed to exist. Alex. Blog title: Stillness in the Storm. Author: Keanu Johnson. Profession: Park Ranger. Location: originally from Wichita. Date: October 23rd, 2023. Tag: fishing trip, Manistee Forest, cryptid encounter, survival. Entry 1, October 20th, 2023, before the storm. I've never been the blogging type, but after this, it helps to get it down. Like marking your trail in case you don't come back. Took a solo fishing trip up in the Manistee National Forest here in Michigan. Weather forecast was sketchy. Storm warnings stretching all across the Upper Peninsula, but I figured I'd tough it out. I've spent days in worse, plus this time of the year the trout are biting like crazy before winter locks the forest in. Parked my truck off a fire road near Tippy Dam and hiked a few miles upstream with a rod and a 40-pound pack. Nothing but orange leaves, deep woods, and that smell of rot that only hits in a damp Midwest autumn. Felt good, honestly. I've been working parks back in Kansas for years, and the quiet gets in your bones in the best way. I had my 357 on me, not cause I expected trouble, just reflex. Years in the job and plenty of backwoods hunting trips have taught me to respect the unknown out here. Camp went up smooth, caught 3 brown trouts before noon, cooked one over a pine fire and watched the sun melt into the forest. Everything felt still, peaceful, but I kept thinking about something an old guy once told me while I was camping near Grayling a few years back. He said, "Don't whistle at night in the woods. Dogman hears it. You won't hear him back." Dogman. Half wolf, half man. Old terror. I chalked it up to campfire nonsense, but last night, when the wind died and I swore I heard something crunching the leaves outside my tent, big, slow, those words crept back. Entry 2, October 21st, 2023, Prowler. Didn't sleep. The wind picked up around midnight, bending trees like matchsticks. My tarp snapped so loud I thought it'd tear, but the wind wasn't the problem. It was what I heard underneath it. Heavy steps circling the tent, a shuffle, then stillness, then again closer, measured, not like a curious raccoon or an opportunistic bear. Whatever it was moved on 2 legs. I swear it. At one point, I held my breath so I could hear better, and I did, breathing just outside the tent flap. I reached for the revolver and held it on my chest till morning. Never opened the tent, didn't dare. When dawn finally came, I scrambled out expecting torn fabric, claw marks, something. Nothing. Just a few indications in the wet leaves. But they weren't footprints. They were longer, wider. Toes like a barefoot man with claws. I packed up half my gear in silence, decided to hike back toward the truck, but not directly. Wanted to follow the river a while, clear my head, maybe circle back once I'd shaken the paranoia. I made it about 3 miles upstream before I found another fire ring, someone else's old camp. Figured I'd hold up there. Big mistake. Entry 3, October 21st, 2023. Shadows. The forest changed in the late afternoon. I don't know how to explain it. Same trees, same river, but the air got heavier. Still, like everything was holding its breath. Around 5, I heard something snap across the water. Then again, I crouched low behind a fallen tree. That's when I saw it. Far side of the river, maybe 30 yards away. Tall, 7 feet easy, muscular, covered in what looked like slick, dark fur. But it wasn't a bear. It stood upright. Its head was all wrong, like a German shepherd's. Elongated snout, pointed ears, yellow eyes that caught the fading light. It didn't charge, it just watched. Then stepped back into the trees. I stayed frozen for 15 minutes. When I finally moved, it was already dark. Storm rolled in full after that. Lightning crashing, rain pouring like a curtain. I had no choice but to stay the night. I built a fire high and dry as I could under a spruce. Sat with my back to the tree and a revolver across my lap. Couldn't see past the firelight, but I felt it out there, circling. I didn't sleep, I just listened. Entry 4, October 22nd, 2023. Escape. Dawn barely cut through the storm clouds. Everything was soaked. I was freezing, shaking, and out of dry food. I decided I'd had enough and made straight for the fire road, maybe 5 miles as the crow flies, but I had to bushwhack most of it. Took me hours. It followed me the whole way. I turned, swear I heard something behind me, and find nothing. No movement, no noise, but when I stopped, utter silence. No birds, no rustling, not even the wind. Then I saw it again, maybe 50 feet out, just watching me through a curtain of rain. Didn't move, didn't flinch, just stalked, always staying right at the edge of visibility. I fired 2 shots into the trees. It didn't care. Finally, I reached the fire road and ran. My boots were soaked, blistered, legs cramping. Didn't matter. I ran until I heard the engine. A blue Ford pickup came around the bend. Old guy named Carl was holding firewood. Said I looked like death. I didn't argue. I asked him, half joking, if he'd ever heard of the Dogman. He got real quiet, then said, "Some things ain't made for daylight. You were lucky." Final note, October 23rd, 2023. I'm back in Wichita now, but something changed out there. I can't sleep. I keep seeing that face in my dreams, those eyes. I've hunted most of my life. I know predators. What I saw in Michigan wasn't natural. If you're reading this and thinking of heading into the Manistee alone, don't. Especially not in the fall, especially not when the air is still. They say Dogman only hunts when the world is quiet enough to listen. Believe it. That was the last post on the blog. Comments were disabled, no updates since. The account was deleted a week later. I've tried reaching out to anyone who might know Keanu Johnson. No one's answered. I don't know what happened to him after that trip. Maybe he made it out okay, maybe not. But I'm not camping in Michigan. Not now, not ever. You're gonna want to sit down for this one. I was down a late night internet rabbit hole, poking through abandoned blogs and half-finished journals, when I came across a site called Cracked Canvas 87. It didn't have much, no bio, no flashy design, just plain black background, white text, and one long blog post titled, "Don't Look It in the Eyes." The author? Chris Goodson, MMA fighter from Detroit. Judging by the way he writes, short, clipped, no nonsense, He doesn't strike you as the type to scare easy, which makes what he wrote all the more unsettling. What follows is my retelling of his post. He tells it better, but I'll try to do it justice. April 6th. Arrival. Chris had rented a small, weathered cabin in the Zuni Mountains of New Mexico for a week. Yeah, I know, it's not Appalachia like he originally planned. He even mentions it himself in the blog. Said the listing got switched last minute and he didn't care where it was, as long as it was remote and off-grid. It was spring, and the forecast called for steady rain, perfect for a guy who wanted to disconnect and hike till his knees gave out. The cabin sat near the edge of a tribal land, no cell service, just static if you tried to tune a radio. He called it peaceful at first. April 7th, the feeling. It started on the second day. Chris writes that he was sharpening his fighting knives by the fire when he noticed the silence. Not just quiet, but a thick, heavy absence of sound. No birds, no wind, not even the usual creak of the old wooden cabin. That's when he first felt it. A needle, sharp pressure behind the eyes, like someone was watching him through glass. He stepped out onto the porch and scanned the tree line with a flashlight. Saw nothing, but he couldn't shake the sense that something was there, crouching just out of view, studying him. He slept with a blade under his pillow that night. April 8th, the game. Now this is where things get weird. Chris decided to go for a hike to shake off the paranoia. Rain was coming down in sheets, soaking his gear. He kept to a narrowed game trail up a ridge, but he kept hearing footsteps behind him. Soft, deliberate, not trying to hide. Then clear as day he heard his own voice call out, "Hey, over here." He spun around, thinking maybe someone was playing a prank, but no one was there. He followed the sound a little, cautious, until he saw something hunched low in the brush, just out of focus. It darted behind the tree when he tried to get closer. Then another voice, hiss again, came from the opposite direction. Same pitch, same cadence, but hollow, like it was echoing through a tunnel. He wrote, "I realized it wasn't trying to lure me into the woods. It was testing me, like a cat playing with its food." Chris turned back toward the cabin. He never finished the hike. April 8th, later that night, the first close encounter. Rain hadn't let up. Thunder rolled overhead. Chris was inside sharpening one of his smaller blades, one he kept ankle holstered, when the smell hit him. A sickening, rot-heavy stench that filled the whole room in seconds. He got up to check the door. Locked. Check the windows. Secure. That's when he saw it, standing at the edge of the tree line, a shape that looked like a twisted version of a man. Long limbs, mangled fur. The face? He didn't describe it in detail, just said. It looked like it wore someone else's skin, stretched tight, smiling wrong. It didn't move, just watched, for hours. When the rain hit hard again, it vanished. Chris didn't sleep that night. April 9th, the wound. He was ready to leave. Packed everything. He even mentions duct taping a hunting knife to the butt of his backpack for quick reach. Before leaving, he did a sweep of the cabin, checking behind furniture, under the porch, even inside the old wood stove. Satisfied he was alone, he stepped outside. It waited for him. Chris describes the ambush as a lightning quick. He didn't even see it move, just a blur that knocked him backward into the mud. He rolled and kicked out instinctively, slashing upward with a pocket blade. It screeched, an awful human-like wail, but it still raked his shoulder with what felt like claws. He ran. He doesn't say how long he ran, only that it felt like miles. blood mixed with the rain soaking his jacket. He writes that he stayed off the path, weaving between trees, ducking low, using the downpour to cover his escape. Every time he paused to listen, he could hear something following, cracking twigs behind him, sometimes even laughter. His own laughter. It was toying with him again. The final escape. Eventually, Chris reached a gravel service road. A lone truck was passing through. He stumbled out, nearly got hit. The driver was an older guy, local, by the sound of it, who took one look at him and asked, "You been up near the tribal line?" Chris nodded. The man didn't ask anything else, just told him to keep his eyes shut if he heard voices at night and not to look back no matter what he heard. Chris didn't look back. Not then, not ever. That was the last post. Nothing else after that. No, I'm safe now, no explanation. Just silence. I checked. The blog's been taken down now, but I saved the page. I couldn't help myself. And I believe every word. Because sometimes, when I'm walking home late at night, I swear, I hear my own voice behind me, calling. The thing that circled the cypress, as told by someone who found George Mortensen's blog. You ever read something that just sticks with you? Like it drills into your spine and refuses to leave? I did a few weeks ago. It was on a blog called Green Grouse Grim. You wouldn't think much of it at first. The name sounds like a gardening tips site or maybe some vegan recipes. But there was only one post, and it was buried. You couldn't find it on the homepage. I stumbled on it through an old Reddit thread about cryptid sightings in southern Louisiana. The post was written by a guy named George Mortensen, gardener by trade, New Orleans local. Seemed like the kind of guy you'd see at a weekend's farmer's market, maybe chatting about compost or heirloom tomatoes. But what he wrote, man, it doesn't read like someone looking for attention. It reads like a man trying to get it off his chest before he loses his mind. Here's how it went down, best I can remember from the blog. I'll tell it to you like I read it, like he's whispering in your ear. December 17th, the arrival. George wanted some peace and quiet. That's how he started. Said he found this little off-grid cabin out in the swamps near Chicot State Park, technically private land owned by a friend of a friend who owed him a favor. He planned to spend a couple of days alone, no phone, just him, his cast iron skillet and a stack of recipe books. Said he was finally going to try that squirrel and sassafras stew his uncle used to talk about. Not exactly gourmet, but that was George, simple guy, loved cooking with what he had around. It had been raining for days, not a light drizzle either, heavy, unrelenting Louisiana winter storms. Gray sky, cold wind, trees swaying like they were trying to shake something loose. The bayou was high, roads were mostly mud. But George was stubborn. He hiked in with a backpack, machete strapped to his side, and one of those old gas lanterns swinging from his hand. The cabin was small, wooden, no insulation, no running water, but it was dry, mostly. He writes, I should have turned around when I saw the claw marks on the shed door, but I told myself it was a raccoon. It's always a raccoon until it's not. December 18th, the first encounter. It started with the scratching, not right at the cabin, but somewhere out near the tree line, low and deliberate. George figured it was a possum or some other swamp critter prowling around. Then it happened again, later that night, closer. He turned off the lantern, cracked open the shutters, and stared out into the rain-soaked woods with a flashlight. That's when he saw the eyes. Too low to the ground to be a person, too wide apart to be a dog, just glowing, motionless, watching him, not blinking, not retreating. They disappeared when he opened the door and shouted, like whatever it was knew how to stay hidden. December 19th, circling. By morning the rain had turned to a cold drizzle, and the air stank of sulfur and wet moss. George decided to cut his trip short. He packed what little he had and planned to hike back to the main road where his car was parked. It wasn't far, maybe 2 miles through the woods. He made it half a mile before he heard it again, that low scratching sound, but this time it moved with him, shifted position every time he stopped. At first, he thought it might be a bear or a feral hawk, but when he doubled back to try and flank it, there was nothing there, just clawed trees and a strange circular mark in the mud. That's when George remembered the videos. He'd gone down a YouTube rabbit hole a couple weeks before the trip. Cryptids, unidentified camp creatures, videos of hunters whispering about it, about something that watched from the tree line, circled campsites, mimicked voices, something that stayed just far enough away to make you doubt yourself, until it didn't. He never gave it much credit, not until he heard something in the woods calling his name. December 19th, the chase. He ran, didn't matter where, just away from the voice that sounded like him, but wrong, hollow, like it came from inside a cave or down a well. He slipped in the mud, tore his arm on a branch, but he didn't stop. Said the thing started circling closer, no more pretense. He'd see it dart between trees, sometimes upright, sometimes on all fours, always just enough to catch with the corner of his eye. He wrote. It had no face, not really, just suggestions of one, like something trying to wear one. At one point, he ducked into a collapsed hunting blind, crouched behind a log, holding his machete tight. The thing circled him again. He said it moved in rhythms, clockwise, slow, never stepping in the same place twice, like it was working through some ritual, like it was waiting for him to make a mistake. George didn't breathe. He didn't move. He said the only thing that saved him was the wind shifting. The creature caught a new scent or maybe grew bored. When the footsteps faded, he sprinted. December 19th. Escape. He reached his car just before dusk, mud-covered, soaked, his knife still in a dead grip. He didn't even turn around to see if it was still following him. Just peeled off down the dirt road, tires screaming through the muck. He only glanced in the rearview mirror once, just once, and he swears he saw it standing in the road, a silhouette against the trees, watching. That's where the blog ends. No final paragraph, no "I'm safe now", no call for help, just done. I tried to track him down. The blog's gone now. Deleted a couple days after I found it. Nothing on social media, no photos, no videos, no proof it ever existed. But I saved the page. I saved the whole thing. Because every now and then, late at night, when I'm cooking, just like George used to, I swear I hear something circling my apartment, real slow.